On July 5th of 2022, the Washington Post stated that there had been more than 300 shootings, with 17 of them taking place in just the first 4 days of July. Over time, this issue has only gotten worse. The safety of children while they are at school is being questioned, and honestly, it's only going to get worse if we don't do anything about it. Personally, just in the last year, my school has been put into a lockdown twice. Fortunately for us, there were threats that weren't acted on, but there are many people who cannot say the same. I live only an hour away from Uvalde, Texas, where 21 people were killed by an active shooter, and the thought of this being considered normal is absolutely baffling. The significant problem of gun violence caused by the lack of laws limiting the obtaining of firearms and poor mental health may be solved by stricter gun laws ensuring the mental health of our citizens. The need for gun violence to end has never been greater, and we need to bring attention to it. The issue of gun violence is only growing worse, and it will continue to grow in this way until we do something to change it. Since the early 1970s, the United States have averaged nearly 14,500 gun homicides and perhaps another 70,000 non-fatal injuries from gun assaults. This is addressing the benefits of reducing gun violence evidence from Contingent-Valuation survey data. It was said by two authors, Kwan and Bat, that in 2000, nearly 30,000 people died from injuries pertaining to firearms in the U.S. The authors also state that these deaths are continuing to happen despite the numerous laws that we have already in place, ranging from background check to just outright ban of firearms. Many things have been considered at the federal level. Unfortunately, the range of people who are experiencing gun violence is continuing to grow, with both children and elderly in this community being affected by this in some way. It is stated that school shootings and gun violence are a plague on our schools and society in the U.S. today. In the Wiley Handbooks in Education, the Wiley Handbook on Violence in Education, Forms, Factors, and Preventions, the author addresses her own experiences with gun violence, as well as the increase in school shootings and domestic terrorism in the 2000s. Referencing to the shootings in Finland, Germany, Greece, Brazil, and other countries, as well as the United States. Between 1992 and 2000, 35 incidents occurred in which students started firing at schoolmates and teachers at their school or at a school-sponsored event. These events have lasting effects not only on the person who was injured, but in some way everyone. From the person who made the 911 call to the person hearing about it on the news, it affects each and every person in some way. The issue is becoming more and more widespread, and they show no sign of slowing down. In Comprehend and Combine, written by Ralph W. Larkin, he describes the complete and utter distraught that Columbine High School experienced on April 20th, 1999, when two Colorado teenagers decided to enter a school and begin shooting. As you can see, this is a huge issue and it needs to be addressed. It's pretty clear that no one in their right mind would walk into a school or grocery store and decide to just start shooting. So why aren't we looking into the why? We don't look at mental health as a serious issue, rather than just something to joke about. In the book Deadly Lessons: Understanding Lethal School Violence, the author touches base on the psychological state of a shooter named T.J. Solomon, who had attempted suicide on December 20th when a shooting had occurred in May of 1999. This shows that the mental state of the shooter was obviously not well. So why wasn't this paid closer attention to? As we all know, there are gun laws in place. However, it has been proved time and time again that they are not effective. In the article, Gun Control Laws Can Reduce Violence, they mention a big problem regarding gun laws and how they are shown as just single laws, and states that with a focus on just one law, issues as statewide differences in implementations, public resources on laws, and interactions between the new law and existing laws are easily marginalized in the model building process, and this may explain some of the different outcomes between studies. Wiley Handbooks in Education states that gun ownership is rampant in the United States and gun violence is an epidemic, and if this is the case, it is something that can be controlled by stricter laws. The laws currently in place haven't proven to help with gun violence in the slightest, as numbers have continued to increase. The article Gun Control Laws Can Reduce Gun Violence states that the number of injuries due to guns are more than the number of deaths from HIV, alcohol abuse, or drug abuse. This article also brings light to the fact that these numbers are despite almost 20,000 laws that and regulations regulating gun usage to some degree. Gun control laws can reduce gun violence also introduces the idea that ineffectiveness could be a factor of the different levels of gun control legislations. With this being said, I think the solution is pretty clear. The significant problem of gun violence caused by the lack of laws limiting the obtaining of firearms, poor mental health may be solved by stricter gun laws and ensuring the mental well-being of citizens. It has been shown multiple times that stricter gun laws have decreased gun violence. So we just need to set the right laws to completely eliminate or at the bare minimum greatly decrease the likeliness, and along with helping people with their mental well-being, these issues will eventually come to a plateau and hopefully completely stop. As said in gun control laws can reduce violence, the creation of gun laws does not decrease the amount of gun violence, and this can be seen in previous scenarios. But they also stated that the approximately 20,000 laws haven't done nearly enough. So with that being said, we must do more. In Deadly Lessons Understanding Lethal School Violence, they shed light on the mental state of the shooter, and taking this into consideration, I believe that if we step up our mental health care, that will help tremendously. It can be shown in other countries that this solution has the full capacity to help eliminate gun violence. Many people want to see the change in these laws, and it can be shown everywhere from social media to the streets in front of the White House where protests are being held. There are hundreds of petitions that you can sign, and this just shows how much people want to see this change be made, not just for the children today, but for the future generations. The safety of people when completing daily tasks like getting groceries and going to the mall shouldn't be at risk because a gun is sold to the wrong person. This solution could prevent hundreds of people from losing their lives. It could help children feel safer in their learning environment, prevent thousands from having to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. Just overall safety of that everyone deserves to have when going through their day-to-day lives. The peace that ending gun violence would give so many people is something we should strive for. Gun violence is a serious problem in this country, and it needs to be addressed. The lack of laws pertaining to firearm ownership, along with the small number of resources for mental health well-being of people, are seen to be major causes of this violence. I think that ensuring that guns are being sold to the right people is a big way to prevent mass shootings, and by this I mean possibly increasing the age in which people are allowed to own guns, as it has been shown in many shootings that many shootings are done by young adults, such as the Columbine shooting. I also believe that ensuring the mental well-being of people will drastically decrease these numbers as well. The issue that is gun violence can be solved, or at a bare minimum become more controlled, by creating stricter gun laws and ensuring the mental well-being of our citizens. For the sake of our future generation, let's do our best to prevent school shootings, or any shooting for that matter, to become a norm. Let's let them grow up not knowing what it's like to be scared to do something as simple as going to church or to buy groceries. From here you might say, okay, that's great, but what can I do about it? Well, there's many petitions that you can sign, that you can join to bring awareness to the gun control, such as the Sandy Hook Promise and March for Our Lives. But you don't have to stop there. You can do so much more.